is no shortage of AI news right now. There are new AI tools, new announcements, new promises. But when we talk to corporate development teams and deal makers, the conversation is usually much simpler. They are thinking, how do I evaluate opportunities faster? How do I move diligence forward? Or how do I make better decisions with information I already have regarding a deal? The challenge isn't that AI cannot answer those questions. It's that the data AI needs is spread across inboxes, spreadsheets, shared drives, and deal platforms. That's where DealRoom MCP comes in. MCP, for those of you who don't know, it's Model Context Protocol, which securely connects your AI tools like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini to your deal data in DealRoom. So teams can spend less time gathering context and more time acting on insights. To show what that looks like in practice, we are going to follow a fictional character today who is Director of Corporate Development named Maya through different stages of the deal lifecycle and explore 5 practical ways AI can help when it's all connected directly to your deal data.
So thinking of practical use cases for AI, we have our character Maya here. She's on the corp dev team. Her team just received an inbound SIM or a teaser. Now, oftentimes teams are spending hours manually reviewing information and then trying to determine whether the deal is actually worth pursuing. All of those details are scattered around. They're in emails, PDFs, spreadsheets, and frankly, by the time we actually get to analyzing, is this a good opportunity for us, a lot of time has been wasted. This slows down deal qualifications, it creates inconsistencies across evaluations, and increases, the risk of missing strong fit opportunities. And so today, I'd like to show you an example of how using AI, we can improve this process. So here I'm looking at my Claude. Now, for all of our use cases today, these can be applicable across any model, whether it be Claude, ChatGPT, Copilot. The example I'm going to use today is I've just received a teaser for Clover Creek. I'm going to push this through. Now, you'll notice I'm actually asking it to do a couple of actions here. Firstly, I'm asking it to compare it to our Project Demiglass acquisition. And then I want it to tell me, hey, where do these match? Financials, sector, deal structure, where do they diverge? And then based off of that, give me items that I should begin diligencing. Not only that, I want to compare it to Demiglass. I want to take the learnings that have applied, and then ultimately I want to create a new deal in DealRoom, and I want to place it in a specific phase. Now that I have my prompt running, you can see a couple of things are happening. Firstly, it's analyzing the Clover Creek SIM that I had uploaded against Project Demiglass. Firstly, by extracting the actual information from the SIM and then pulling the information from Project Demiglass. Now it's actually running the comparison, it's finding Demiglass, and it's grabbing my face setup so it can understand exactly where it needs to place this new deal. But it'll still give us this excellent output over here. Now, it's running pretty quick, but let's scroll up. Firstly, you can see here that we've actually created the deal inside of DealRoom. And based on the instructions that I've provided, it's going to start telling me where they match side by side. Looks like this is a pretty good opportunity for us. There's a lot of similarities between these two organizations. Looking at the actual divergence and the diligence implications as I listed, a lot of good things to flag here. Diving into our key lessons. And so this is really powerful as DealRoom or your system of record can really begin acting as a context layer, understanding your learnings from previous deals. How do they apply to new SIMs? And really listing out some strategic questions for us to ask, making sure that we can hit all of the priority or critical items. And then it's diving into some competitive edge and then the valuation check. From here, it's providing me some next steps, what's happening during due diligence, and providing me a summary of the deal card that we created. So I'll go ahead and scroll back up top here, and I'll click open my deal and see what the actual output is into DealRoom based on what I've just run. So clicking into this, you'll see Clover Creek Dental Associates has done an excellent job at identifying the type of deal, the description of the company, pulling out financial information, rationale, why is the target interested in selling, and then, of course, next steps, all based off of a very quick prompt. And here you can see in just a couple of minutes how easy it is to take this information, compare it against your historicals, and then ultimately come out with an output that will actually move the needle forward. So after running this practice, Maya and her team decide that, yeah, this is an opportunity worth pursuing. They go ahead, they get an LOI signed with the team, and now here comes the fun part, getting the seller organized and ready for the deal. And if you've ever run diligence, you know that this process gets very messy very quickly. And so to that end, I would love to introduce my fellow product manager, Manasa, to show you how Maya can generate a seller onboarding profile and guide directly from the room that's already been set up.
So Dave showed you Claude connected to live DealRoom data. Maya qualified that deal in minutes. Now jump forward. LOI signed, room set up. Maya needs the seller to actually use it. Every corp dev lead knows this moment. Maya has built out the room, folders, task lists, work streams. She invites the founder on the other side, and silence, or documents land in the wrong folders. Because to a founder who has never sold a company, a data room is just a wall of folders. They don't know what's urgent or what half the requests mean. So traditionally, an analyst writes a custom onboarding document by hand, copy pasting folder names, translating everything into plain English. Every single deal, hours of work, zero analytical value. With our MCP, Claude isn't just generating text, it's reading Maya's live room, her actual folders, her actual tasks, and let me show you how that works. Now you can see the data room that Maya has set up. It's called monday.com. You can see the data room that's set up with all the folders, and you also see the task list here. Now, all that Maya has to do is basically type one sentence. I have just set up a due diligence room for monday.com deal. Write me a seller onboarding guide week by week in plain English for a founder who has never been through a deal before. Use the actual folders and tasks already in the room. That's it. No technical instructions, just plain English, the way she would brief her own team. Behind the scenes, the MCP pulls her real room structure and Claude turns it into week-by-week roadmap tailored to this deal. First, what buyers look at in the first 48 hours, cap table, governing documents, board minutes, then financials and tax, then legal and IP, through to handling ad hoc buyer requests with exact upload locations for every document. This isn't a template. It's built from Maya's room in real time, every single time. This is running pretty quick, but I also have the seller onboarding guide that's ready by running the exact same prompt. And you can see how it has created like week by week task list and upload list, a guide for the sellers. So that's the takeaway. Live access means nothing is copied, nothing goes stale. One sentence, minutes, and it's done. The hours her team spent on this go back into actual deal work, and this is one of dozens of workflows they can build. Now, the seller starts uploading, and the real diligence begins. Kenneth will show you what happens when an analyst reviews those documents through the MCP, surfacing risks and pushing findings straight back into DealRoom.
What I'm going to show you today is how DealRoom's MCP brings analysis and documentation into one surface. The surface I'll be using is Claude. So back to our hero, Maya. In this scenario, Maya has retained outside counsel to perform legal due diligence for this acquisition deal. I'm going to play the role of legal counsel. In Claude, I've already oriented myself with the legal documents inside of DealRoom. But now I want to dig into a specifically legal topic, change of control and termination. So I'm going to ask Claude to list the contracts that have a change of control and termination clause, and for Claude to walk me through these contracts. Change of control legal clause are one of those issues that legal counsel looks for during due diligence. These are the contracts that give certain customers the right to walk away or terminate when an acquisition closes. And missing one of these issues could cause real post-close exposure. And here in Claude, we see that they have listed a few agreements with a change of control and termination clause. The one that I'm concerned with is Alcott Health, because Alcott Health shows a 30-day window, which seems pretty tight. So I'm going to ask Claude to look at this agreement a bit further and to explain the potential problems or issues it sees in this Alcott agreement. So while we wait for Claude to answer, a change of control and termination is a question that legal counsel would normally answer after reviewing the contract manually, cross-referencing the schedule, and drafting a memo. Using Claude via our MCP, Claude's able to do this on the fly, the synthesis on the fly, directly from the document that lives in DealRoom under this deal. So here Claude has flagged and explained what it thinks the legal problem or issue is. And what we see here is definitely an issue or risk worth flagging to Maya and her team. In this Alcott Health change of control and termination agreement, or a clause, this gives Alcott, the customer, it shows that Alcott is the second largest customer in this deal with a 30-day termination window that is triggered the moment this deal closes. Losing Alcott would be a significant and immediate hit to the revenue the acquirer would expect to gain from this deal. And if Maya's team, if we don't flag this to Maya and her team, they might not have enough time to renegotiate before it becomes a real problem. As I mentioned earlier, this is a type of risk that I would want, as legal counsel, would want to raise and save as a finding in DealRoom. So the issue is visible to Maya and her entire team. And this is really where DealRoom's MCP earns its place. So what I'm going to ask Claude to do now is to take this issue and save it in DealRoom as a finding. As we're waiting for it to save in DealRoom, what we've done here is basically we've opened a data room and analyzed the document, identified an issue, and pushed it back into DealRoom all within about 4 minutes. And now if we go to DealRoom, we see that this finding has been saved as a high severity issue, waiting for Maya and her team to address and discuss with senior leadership. This was just a short example of an individual performing due diligence. My colleague Jason is going to show you what this looks like from Maya's Corp Dev seat.
I'm on DealRoom's product team, and I look after creating value for deal teams within private equity. And prior to her current job on a corporate development M&A team, Maya was an associate at Acme Partners, a mid-market PE firm. So like many PE firms, Acme, one, has a very high volume of deal flow, and two, they lean on subject matter experts, often external experts, for parts of their M&A process. So it's key for Acme to make it easy for the various stakeholders to manage the diligence process, especially at their level of scale. So I want to show you how the PE firm uses DealRoom's MCP to streamline that process. So first, since Acme often takes advantage of external teams, they use the MCP to gather relevant findings from DealRoom and send them via email to those workstream owners. So let's see how this plays out. I am now in Claude, and I pasted in a prompt that is telling Claude to go off and use the DealRoom MCP to grab the various deals and the findings within them and map those or send those via email to the various workstream owners. It's using a connector to Google Sheets to understand who owns which workstream. Sam owns the HR workstream, so he's responsible for managing the findings associated with HR, the HR risks and other issues that have been uncovered by the team. So we'll take a look at what this looks like within Sam's email system. Here we can see the email that was created by Claude using all the information from DealRoom, and we can see that Sam gets a consolidated view of all the findings within the HR category, grouped by severity, allows Sam on his subway ride home at night to review those and get a head start on managing those, perhaps going into DealRoom from this email and assigning them to folks on his team. So the leadership team at Acme Partners is more interested in the holistic view across deals. Those subject matter experts that we just talked about are looking at on a deal-by-deal basis, but the leadership team wants to look across. So they need to understand which deals might need attention, or if there are certain risks that should get more focus, and so that the partners can address those. So we'll look at what this looks like for the team and how they take advantage of the MCP to get a better understanding of the 35,000-foot view. So here within Claude, I am providing a prompt that is instructing Claude to use the DealRoom MCP to grab all the deals, all the findings associated with those, and prepare a dashboard that can be used by the leadership team to manage and get a high-level understanding across all of the deals that they're working at, that the team is working at this time. So we'll see what this looks like we'll see what this dashboard looks like. So here's the executive level dashboard that the Acme Partners team can look at. They can get a sense of which of the active deals might have the most findings, where the you get a sense of where the high severity findings are. And if they do want to drill down more into the individual findings, they can open these up and navigate over to DealRoom to learn more. But generally, these executive teams are looking at this more holistically at a higher level. So the team has this scheduled to run each Monday morning, just hours before their weekly leadership team meeting, and allows the team and all of the owners within that team to come into that meeting prepared. So hopefully this provided a peek into how DealRoom's MCP can be used by both corporate development deal teams as well as those teams at private equity firms to help streamline the M&A process and drive successful company acquisitions.
Thanks, Jason, and thanks to the entire team for walking us through those 5 powerful use cases. And for everyone online, if you would like to learn more about DealRoom MCP, visit dealroom.net/MCP.
So the way to set up your Claude connection with your DealRoom is actually very simple. As I'm here in my Claude code, I'd simply go up into Customize, and then you can see Skills and Connectors. We're looking for connectors. One thing that I'll quickly pause here and mention is you'll see that I have a lot of connectors here, and then I even have several that are right now disconnected. I think this is truly the powerful part about MCP is not only are you using Claude with DealRoom or Claude with XYZ, you're really bringing in your whole ecosystem of information. And I know this, for me, is what makes it very useful on a day-to-day basis. The way that you would set it up once you're inside of connectors, you'd simply hit the plus button here. As of right now, we're not available within the search connectors. However, this is something that we are looking to work on and achieve. All you would do is you would hit Add Connector, and then you would go ahead and create a custom one. Now, I'm actually going to switch over to my personal Claude account since I am on my company one, just to briefly show you what the full process looks like. Go to Connectors, Add Custom, and then you would just go ahead and give it a name. And then you would actually type in the MCP URL right here. You don't need to do anything underneath advanced settings. It's as simple as calling it DealRoom MCP, plugging in a URL, and then hitting add. The one thing I will notate about this is, as of right now, we do have DealRoom MCP in a private beta. However, we are opening this up and making sure that we can get this in front of as many customers as possible. And so my recommendation to you would be to reach out to your dedicated account manager and ask them if you can be added to the list, and we'll look to get you up and running as soon as we're able to comfortably. Great question, and we're moving very quickly on this, so don't think that it's going to be quite a long wait, so to speak.
Access rights and permissions are key table stakes to the M&A process. It's really important that only the appropriate folks can see and act on certain information within the M&A process. So you can think of DealRoom MCP as just another touch point to the overall platform. So the answer to the question is that the same permissions, the same access rights that you have set up on your rooms and your data room documents and other business rules carry over to MCP.
This is a really good question. Obviously, with AI in general, there's a lot of concern when it comes to data privacy. The interesting thing with Claude and other tools is oftentimes this can be more secure than what's actually happening in reality. Today, a lot of folks out there are going out and they're downloading files from the VDR, and then they're uploading that into Claude or ChatGPT, which may not be under an enterprise agreement. And so, similar to Jason's earlier point, this also applies to your actual Claude or ChatGPT. If you're under an enterprise subscription for any of those, by default, that actually won't train or use any of that data to improve the models. And so in a lot of ways, we find that this is actually a lot safer than the status quo and what's happening within reality. As well as on the other side is the other party would also be able to use this connector as well in particular. Once this is fully opened up, it'll really be widely available, and this just becomes a benefit for both parties. And so while this is 100% an understandable security concern, and addressing it with the other party is something of the utmost importance in terms of transparency, it's oftentimes much better than what's happening in reality, that downloading and putting into wayward AI systems. Also, really, MCP and these Claudes, they effectively act as a bridge. If you're using like legal tools like a Heavy or something along those lines, this just acts as a great way to bridge those tools without necessarily having to perform any sort of legitimate integration.
That's a great question, and it gets at exactly why the MCP matters. There is no template and no export. When a corp dev person asks for the guide, Claude makes live calls into the room through the MCP. It pulls the actual folder tree, the actual request list, the actual tasks with their priorities at that moment. So in the room you saw, it picked up things like the high priority items, cap table, governing documents, board minutes, directly from how the tasks were configured and put them in week 1 because they were flagged high priority, which means if you restructure folders or add a new request list next week, you don't redo anything. You just ask again the same one sentence prompt that I typed in, and the guide regenerates from the current state of the room. Nothing goes stale because nothing was copied. That's the difference between Claude with the MCP and pasting screenshots into a chatbot.